Everyone at the university knew that Serafina Linley and I were the perfect match. I was at the top of my class and treated her with nothing but gentle devotion. Everyone expected us to go from campus sweethearts to walking down the aisle, but she left anyway. There were no arguments and no warning signs. On a perfectly ordinary afternoon, after finishing her last meal with me, she walked away without looking back. She ran straight into the arms of Ryder Stone, the campus bad boy, who had been loud and aggressive in his pursuit of her. For 3 years, being with you is too stable. Finn, she told me, I want a love that's reckless, something that burns and makes me feel alive. From that day on, she started skipping classes and hitting the clubs. She began riding on the back of motorcycles with a crowd of shady street thugs. When her parents tried to stop her, she blocked them all. In desperation, they came to me begging for help. My heart softened. One last time, I found her carrying the paperwork I had finished to get her into a prestigious study abroad program. He rejected me instantly. There are no more spots for our department to go abroad. You don't have to lie to me just to make me break up with Ryder. I wanted to explain that I had paid for it myself. I wanted to tell her that I would be going with her, but she cut me off before I could speak. He once jumped into a freezing river for me and almost died. Even if you gave me $10 million or $100 million to leave him, I wouldn't do it. I won't betray him. I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. So you're choosing to betray me. Instead, she lowered her head and whispered a small apology. Before turning to walk away, I watched her decisive silhouette fade into the distance. I didn't try to stop her. I just let out a soft sigh. She had no idea that she hadn't just lost me or her academic future. She had just lost her chance to be the matriarch of a $100 billion empire. I asked my family's head butler, Silas, to accompany me to the administration building to finalize my withdrawal. I didn't want to cause a scene or expose my true identity, so I instructed the school to tell everyone I was dropping out. I made sure they didn't mention I was transferring to a world-class Ivy League university. The paperwork was done. The sunlight outside felt blindingly sharp. Are you all right, young master? Silas asked in a low voice. I looked up. Do you really think I'd throw my life away over a woman? Silas shook his head. I laughed at myself. The 18-year-old version of me might have. At 21, I finally understand what my father meant. He said that in a dynasty like ours, love is the most useless thing you can possess. It only makes you a target for ridicule. I am the sole heir to the Montgomery fortune. Since I was a child, everyone who approached me was only after the money. After being betrayed too many times, I locked myself away in a cage of solitude. But I still wanted a taste of a normal youth, real friends, and a warm, genuine romance. So at 18, I put on thick-rimmed glasses and wore the most basic clothes to attend this university. But the aura of cold detachment I cultivated since childhood was too strong. The first month, no one dared to speak to me. I tried to join clubs, but I was rejected time and again. Eventually, I sat by the campus lake feeling defeated and ready to give up. Then Serafina appeared. She was like a beam of light that crashed straight into my stagnant heart. When I took the soda, she offered with a smile. My fingers wouldn't stop shaking. In 18 years, that was the first time someone had given me something, out of genuine kindness, even if it was just a cheap drink. She comforted me with gentle words and enthusiastically dragged me into the art society. She told me she didn't care that I came from a modest background. In that moment, I decided to give her my entire heart. I really did crazy things for her back then. Once when I heard a false rumor that she had a boyfriend, I drank until I was hospitalized with a bleeding stomach. But the next day, after she explained everything and told me she loved me, I cried like a total fool. Looking back, maybe that was what youth was supposed to be. A series of sharp stinging pains. I was just about to leave the building when I ran right into Serafina and Ryder. Serafina's eyes were still red from crying. She stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. Finn Montgomery, I know you're hurting, but you can't drop out and ruin your life. My conscience will never be clear if you do this. I pulled my hand back, my voice ice cold. I'm not dropping out because of you. We have no relationship now. Please keep your distance and have some self-respect. I turned to leave. Ryder immediately blocked my path, acting like a self-righteous martyr. Sarah stayed with a loser like you for 3 years. It's more than enough. You're only dropping out to make her feel guilty. If you really loved her, you'd wish us well. Just then my 3 roommates happened to walk by. They charged forward and shoved Ryder back. Have you no shame? You stole his girl, and now you're playing the victim. Everyone knows how well Finn treated her. She dumped him like trash. Now she's playing innocent. Any girl who ends up with a piece of garbage like Ryder probably isn't worth much herself. Ryder exploded instantly. You can insult me, but don't you dare talk about Sarah. In the next second, he swung a fist. The 4 of them were suddenly locked in a chaotic brawl. A massive crowd of students gathered, their phones out to record every second of the drama. It didn't take long for my 3 roommates to knock Ryder to the ground. Serafina threw herself over him, screaming at me with hysterical intensity. Finn Montgomery, you're evil. You chose to drop out yourself. Nobody forced you. I came here out of concern, and you sent people to beat him up. I regret every second of those 3 years. You're a possessive freak. You treated me like property, forbidding me from seeing other guys. How is that different from keeping me in a cage? You're a monster. Ryder lay on the ground, sounding weak and pathetic. Sarah, don't blame him. It's my fault for chasing true love. But even if it kills me, I'll rescue you from a man like him. Serafina glared at me with bloodshot eyes and roared. What will it take for you to let him go? Do you want my body that badly? Fine, I'll give it to you. To stop hurting him. She reached up and began tearing at her own collar, exposing her shoulder to the crowd. The surrounding students went wild. God, Finn looks so sophisticated, but he's actually a total predator. That's disgusting. If I were her, I would have dumped him a long time ago. Insults, accusations, and the sound of camera shutters rained down on me like a storm. I looked down at them, a cold smirk playing on my lips. You just don't want to be known as the girl who cheated. So you're trying to pin everything on me. But you forgot one thing. When I loved you, I was willing to play the fool. Now that I don't, I have no reason to tolerate your nonsense. Also, keep your clothes on. You're pathetic, and I'm worried it'll rot my eyesight. I called for Silas and walked away without a second glance. The following night, my dorm leader, Barrett, called me to suggest a farewell dinner. We had originally planned to hit a cheap burger joint near campus. For 3 years, they had no idea who I really was, but they treated me like a brother. I didn't want to sell them short, so I had Silas book a private room at the most expensive Michelin-starred restaurant in the city. The 4 of us sat down. There were no formalities, just the honest talk of brothers. We drank, toasted, and reminisced about the last 3 years. No one asked how much the meal cost. No one cared about the invisible wealth I carried. It was late at night by the time we stumbled out of the private room, arms draped over each other's shoulders. As soon as we reached the lobby, I saw those 2 again. I had a cigarette dangling from his lip, looking like a total lowlife as he screamed at the front manager. Do you think I'd bring the woman I love here if I couldn't pay? I lost my wallet and my phone is broken. I'll bring the money in a few days. The manager remained expressionless. Sir, your bill is $36,000. If you don't pay now, we are calling the police. Serafina looked up and caught sight of me. She shrieked immediately. Finn Montgomery, you stole Ryder's wallet on purpose. You just wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone. You're so manipulative. I frowned. Are you out of your mind? Why would I steal from him? Ryder instantly dropped his aggression and replaced it with a look of wounded dignity. I know you're still in love with Sarah and hate me for winning her heart. If you wanted to eat at a place like this, I could have treated you. You didn't have to resort to a crime like theft. My 3 roommates stepped in front of me. Bullshit. Finn would never steal anything. Serafina looked at me with tearful eyes, her voice dripping with condescending pity. Finn, just admit it. If you hadn't stolen Ryder's wallet, how could you afford to eat here? Just give it back. I'll make sure Ryder doesn't press charges. Don't ruin your entire future. Over a moment of impulse, I ignored her and gave the manager a subtle nod. Manager understood immediately. A minute later, the full security footage was playing on the lobby's large screens. On the screen, Ryder had made an excuse to go to the restroom. He pulled an empty wallet from his pocket and tossed it into a trash can. Then he took his own phone and smashed it onto the floor until the screen shattered. Back at the table, he had searched his pockets, screaming that his wallet was gone and faking a breakdown over his broken phone. Serafina's face turned a violent shade of red. She looked like she wanted to bury her head in the floor. Ryder panicked. I'll bring the money tomorrow. Don't call the police. I looked down and tapped a few buttons on my phone. The next second, the manager received a message. Polite, professional smile appeared on his face. Our owner is a soft-hearted man. He says that if this gentleman can prove he truly loves the lady by his side, the meal is on the house. The manager took a heavy glass bottle from the bar and handed it to Ryder. Ryder gripped the bottle, his hands shaking violently. He couldn't bring himself to do it. Serafina noticed the stares of the crowd and hissed at him. Ryder, I know it hurts, but I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be expelled. You said you love me. It's just one hit. You've been hurt before. Finally, Ryder closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, slammed the bottle against his own forehead. Blood immediately began to flow down his face, staining his skin. Serafina rushed to hug him. Ryder, you're so brave. Thank you for bleeding for me. I'm so moved. I'll never leave you as long as I live. I stood there feeling nothing but disgust. I didn't want to waste another breath. I pulled my roommates toward the exit. As I passed them, I couldn't help but say one thing. Next time you try to act like a big shot, check the prices before you walk in. A second later, Serafina grabbed my wrist. You have to apologize to Ryder. It's your fault he's hurt. I laughed in disbelief. I have to apologize. Serafina spoke with total conviction. You clearly had enough money for a private room. Why couldn't you have just covered our bill? You're just petty. All those years you said you loved me were a lie. If you don't apologize today, I'm not letting this go. Ryder clutched his bleeding head and glared at me. Don't act so tough. My boss works for the underworld king of this city. I'm going to pay you back for this 10 times over. I let out a cold laugh. Good. I'll be waiting. I wrenched my arm away from her and walked out into the night. The next morning, Barrett called me in a panic. Finn, it's bad. The campus forums are exploding. You need to see this. I opened the university website. The top trending post had a headline that stung shocker. Star student. Finn Montgomery resorts to theft and violence after breakup below. It was a heavily edited video. The first half showed Ryder looking miserable and Serafina crying. The second half was a deep fake AI clip of me hanging my head, admitting to stealing the wallet and holding a bottle, as if I were about to strike Ryder. The comment section was a total disaster. Rumors, insults, and character assassinations flooded the campus. Soon, the dean called me personally. His voice sounded strained. Finn, the situation with Ryder is getting out of hand. The student body is rioting. Can you come to the campus to explain yourself? Fine, I said. After hanging up, I called for Silas. Silas, I'm done being low-key today. Silas bowed respectfully. As you wish. Young master. An hour later, a stretched Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled onto campus. Under the watchful eyes of the entire student body, came to a halt right in front of the administration building. A massive crowd had already gathered. Ryder was there with a group of street thugs holding signs that said, "Punish the violent thief," and screaming for justice. Serafina stood at the front, looking like a victim of a great tragedy. Silas stepped out of the car and bowed deeply as he opened the door. For me, today, I wasn't wearing thick glasses or messy hair. My hair was styled sharply, and my features were clean and defined, looking better than any Hollywood Alistair in my bespoke suit and limited edition watch. I radiated a cold, regal aura that made people take a step back. As I stepped out, the entire plaza fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was frozen in place. I walked toward the pale-faced Serafina and Ryder. My smile was thin and dangerous. So you're the ones who want an explanation. Ryder was the first to snap out of it. He balled his fists and yelled, "You think renting a nice suit and a car is going to scare me? It won't work. My big brother is on his way. You're going to pay for what you did today." The moment the words left his mouth, a black van screeched to a halt behind the Rolls-Royce. The doors slid open. "But." Muscular man with a thick gold chain and a dozen thugs jumped out, looking ready for a war. "Who the hell is bullying my little brother? You got a death wish." The bald man stormed toward me, raising his hand to slap my face. But in the next heartbeat, his hand froze in midair, his eyes filled with pure terror. Vance Silas. His bloodshot eyes darted from my bespoke suit to the emblem on the Rolls-Royce. And finally, they locked onto Silas, who was standing quietly by my side with his hands clasped behind his back. The color drained from the gangster's face so fast he looked like a corpse. His jaw went slack, and the violent bravado he had walked in with evaporated into the crisp morning air. Silas didn't raise his voice. He didn't even shift his posture. He merely tilted his head and offered a polite, chilling smile. "Vance, it has been a while since the Montgomery family permitted your syndicate to operate at the docks. I see you have chosen an interesting way to repay our grace." Vance's knees literally buckled. The giant, terrifying underworld enforcer collapsed onto the concrete, the heavy gold chain around his neck clanking against the ground. "And Mr. Silas," Vance stammered, his voice cracking like a terrified child's. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a terror that no amount of acting could fake. "Young Master Montgomery, I didn't know. I swear to God, I had no idea it was you. If I knew, I would have broken my own legs before stepping out of that van." The entire plaza plunged into a suffocating, dead silence. You could hear the wind rustling through the campus trees. Thousands of students, phones still raised, stood paralyzed. Ryder blinked, his bruised, bandaged head tilting in confusion. "Boss Vance? What the hell are you doing? He's a nobody. He's a broke loser who rented a car to scare us. Get up and break his jaw." Vance turned his head so fast his neck popped. With a roar of absolute panic and rage, he scrambled to his feet, lunged at Ryder, and delivered a backhand so vicious it echoed across the quad. Ryder hit the pavement like a sack of bricks, spitting blood and a loose tooth. "Shut your damn mouth," Vance bellowed, kicking Ryder in the ribs. "You arrogant, blind piece of trash. You brought me here to disrespect the sole heir of the Montgomery Group? Are you trying to get me and my entire family buried in concrete?" Serafina shrieked, backing away as Ryder groaned on the ground. Her eyes darted wildly between me, the Rolls-Royce, and Vance. Her chest heaved. Denial is a powerful drug, and she was overdosing on it. "No, no, This is a trick, she stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. Finn, stop this. Stop paying these actors. You're making a fool of yourself. You think I don't know you? You wore the same 3 shirts for 3 years. I didn't even look at her. I adjusted my cuffs and glanced at Silas. Are they ready? Yes, young master, Silas replied smoothly. He tapped an earpiece. Now, the massive digital billboard on the side of the administration building, usually reserved for campus news and athletic scores, suddenly flickered to life. The audio blasted through the university's PA system, deafening and crystal clear. It was the raw, unedited security footage from a Michelin-starred restaurant. Everyone in the plaza watched as the 20-foot-tall version of Ryder slinked toward the restaurant restrooms. They watched him casually toss his wallet into the trash. They watched him deliberately smash his own phone against the tiles. And then, the screen switched to the lobby, showing Ryder, unprovoked, grabbing the heavy glass bottle and violently bashing it against his own skull, while Serafina praised him for his bravery. The deepfake video that had ruined my reputation overnight was instantly, irrevocably shattered. The crowd of students gasped. The murmurs began, quickly escalating into a roar of outrage. They lied, someone shouted from the front. What a pair of psychopaths. He hit himself, and they try to frame Finn? That's disgusting. Ryder, clutching his bleeding mouth, looked up at the screen in pure horror. The narrative he had built, the tough guy martyr persona, was dissolving in real time. Just then, the heavy glass doors of the administration building flew open. The university dean, flanked by the board of trustees and campus security, practically sprinted down the steps. The dean was sweating through his suit, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Mr. Montgomery, the dean gasped, breathless as he reached me. He bowed, so low his nose almost touched his knees. I am profoundly sorry. We had no idea the situation had escalated to this. The university has already begun the process of tracing the IP address of the deepfake video. We will press federal cybercrime charges on your behalf. Serafina's legs gave out. She dropped to her knees on the hard concrete. The reality was finally piercing through her delusion. The dean, the board of trustees, the underworld boss groveling on the ground, the unedited footage. Finn Montgomery wasn't a poor boy playing dress-up. He was the sky she had been too blind to see. Finn, she whispered, her voice trembling, stripped of all its former arrogance. She crawled forward, reaching out with shaking hands to grab the hem of my trousers. Finn, wait. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I looked down at her. For 3 years, I had worshipped this girl. I had memorized her coffee order, carried her bags, stayed up all night helping her with her thesis, and nearly destroyed my own health just because she smiled at me. I had loved her with the raw, bleeding sincerity of a boy who just wanted to be seen. But looking at her now, all I felt was a profound, icy emptiness. Don't touch me, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made her flinch. I took a deliberate step back. You told me you wanted a love that was reckless, Serafina. Something that burned. Something that made you feel alive. I gestured lazily to the bleeding thug on the ground, the terrified gangster, and the furious crowd of thousands. Well, here's your fire. I hope it keeps you warm. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her meticulously applied makeup. No, Finn, I was wrong. I was manipulated. He tricked me. She pointed a frantic finger at Ryder, who was staring at her in betrayal. He told me you were holding me back. But I love you, Finn. I always loved you. The 3 years we had. You can't just throw them away. Remember the art society? Remember the lake? I remember a boy who gave you everything, I replied coldly. And I remember the girl who threw him away for cheap thrills and a motorcycle ride. I'll change, she sobbed, completely abandoning her dignity as the cameras around us flashed. I'll do whatever you want. Let me come with you. You pay for the study abroad program, right? We can go together, like we planned. I let out a soft, hollow laugh. Serafina, the study abroad program was a fraction of a penny to me. I wasn't just taking you abroad. I had already drafted the paperwork to transfer a 5% stake in Montgomery Enterprises into a trust under your name as a graduation gift. I was going to make you untouchable. Her breath hitched. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. 5% of a $100 billion empire. It was wealth so vast, it was incomprehensible to the people standing in this plaza. But my father was right. I continued, adjusting my watch. Poverty is a remarkable filter. It strips away the polite fiction and shows you exactly who people are. You failed the test, Serafina. Not because you didn't love me, but because you possess no loyalty, no grace, and no character. I turned away from her, motioning to Silas. Wait, Finn, please. She lunged forward, but Vance's thugs, eager to redeem themselves in my eyes, instantly formed a wall between us, shoving her roughly to the ground. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The police were arriving, called in by Silas hours ago to deal with the defamation. the deepfake creation, and Vance's illicit activities. I walked past the shivering rider, who couldn't even meet my gaze. He had wanted to play the alpha male, but in the face of absolute, crushing power, he was nothing but a frightened child. Enjoy the consequences of your reckless love, Ryder, I murmured as I passed him. Before I reached the Rolls-Royce, a voice called out from the crowd. Fiend! I stopped and turned. Pushing through the sea of stunned students were my 3 roommates. Barrett, the dorm leader, looked at my suit, the car, and the surrounding chaos with his jaw hanging open. Man, Barrett breathed, running a hand through his hair. You really hid that well. Are you really dropping out? The cold, detached billionaire mask slipped for just a second, and I offered my brothers a genuine, warm smile. I'm transferring, I said, but the offer for burgers still stands. Anytime. I looked at the dean, who was still hovering nearby like an anxious shadow. Dean, these 3 men are to receive full-ride scholarships for the remainder of their time here. When they graduate, they have guaranteed executive track internships at Montgomery Enterprises. See to it that they are treated with the utmost respect. The dean nodded furiously. Consider it done, Mr. Montgomery. Immediately, Barrett and the guys looked like they had just been struck by lightning. They had defended a poor, heartbroken kid because it was the right thing to do. They had no idea they had just secured their futures for the rest of their lives. Thanks, brothers, I said, tapping my chest over my heart, for having my back. I slid into the back of the Rolls-Royce. Silas closed the door with a solid, satisfying thud, sealing me inside the quiet, luxurious cabin. To the airport, young master? Silas asked from a driver's seat. Yes, Silas. It's time to go home. As the massive car glided away from the curb, I looked out the tinted window one last time. The police had arrived, cuffing Ryder and Vance. Serafina was sitting alone on the concrete, her face buried in her hands, entirely abandoned by the crowd that was now mercilessly mocking her. She had wanted to be the center of attention, the rebellious heroine of her own tragic romance. Now, she was just a cautionary tale. I leaned back against the plush leather and closed my eyes. The phantom pain in my chest, the ache of the 18-year-old boy who just wanted to be loved for who he was, finally faded, replaced by the quiet, steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. I'd locked myself in a cage of solitude for years, afraid of being used. Serafina had picked the lock, only to set the cage on fire. But as I opened my eyes and watched the university fade into the distance, I realized something. The fire hadn't destroyed me. It had forged me. 1 year later, the boardroom of the Montgomery Tower in Manhattan was entirely constructed of soundproof glass, offering a dizzying, panoramic view of the city skyline. I sat at the head of the long mahogany table, scanning the quarterly acquisition reports. At 22, I had officially taken over the North American division of the company while concurrently finishing my degree at an Ivy League university. The thick-rimmed glasses and baggy hoodies were long gone, replaced by tailored Tom Ford and a gaze that didn't flinch. The merger with the Techstone conglomerate is finalized, Mr. Montgomery, said Elias, my lead acquisitions director, sliding a leather-bound folder toward me. However, we did receive a minor hiccup regarding our philanthropy division. A small university in the Midwest is begging for their annual grant to be renewed, the one you pulled last year. I paused, my pen hovering over the document. My old university? Yes, sir. It seems their enrollment dropped significantly after a rather ugly public scandal last spring. Something involving a local gang and a deepfake ring. Several students were expelled, and one, a Ryder Stone, was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for cyber fraud and extortion. I signed a Techstone document without looking up, and the girl. Elias adjusted his glasses, checking his tablet. Serafina Linley. She dropped out shortly after the incident due to severe social ostracization. Last we checked, she was working double shifts at a diner 2 towns over, trying to pay off the legal fees her family incurred, try to sue the university for negligence. They lost, naturally. Naturally. I handed the folder back to him. Deny the grant, Elias. Let them learn to survive on their own merit. Understood, sir. As the board members filed out, Silas entered the room, carrying a silver tray with a single cup of black espresso. He placed it gently on the desk. A long morning, young master? Just business, Silas, I replied, taking a sip. The coffee was perfectly bitter. You have a gala to attend this evening, Silas reminded me, his eyes crinkling warmly. The heiress of the Vanguard Group will be in attendance. Her father mentioned she is quite eager to meet you. She is, by all accounts, highly educated, fiercely loyal to her family, and entirely uninterested in motorcycles. I let out a genuine, low chuckle, looking out over the sprawling empire beneath me. The city was a grid of lights and moving parts, a world of ambition and power. Tell her I'll save her a dance, Silas. I stood up, buttoning my suit jacket, and walked toward the glass. The boy who had cried over a cheap soda by a campus lake was dead and buried. In his place stood the king he was always meant to be. Love wasn't the most useless thing in the world. My father had been wrong about that. But love without boundaries, love without respect, was a poison. I had survived the poison, and now the world was mine.